From the Atonement Fargo studios on South University Drive in Fargo, North Dakota, this is That Podcast. This crew would really like to hear from you. And to do that, you can submit questions or comments at thatpodcast.net. And now, here is your favorite crew of hosts with That Podcast. I forgot I did that.
Yeah.
Did you just make me do one take?
I think you did a couple.
Did I? Man, that was bad.
I need to redo mine because I listened to it a couple of times, which you should never do. And I'm like, man, I really want to do it like, remember the old SNL skit, Deep Thoughts or whatever it is? And
by Jack
just
Handy.
talk really monotone. That podcast.
Hello and welcome to That Podcast.
I do
now
have
grab your pillow and blanket.
I do have to admit, I had to double check which buttons I had to press because it's been a little while since we've been in studio.
Sort of back in my comfort zone.
Yeah.
We're back, and that means
Yep.
I got my sound effects box again.
Agreed. I agree. Well, welcome everybody. My name is Ryan Janke. I'm joined as always by Pastor DJ Lura and Sarah DeYoung, and we are back in the studio. No Zoomcast for everybody.
You know, it was fun doing it on Zoom, but I gotta say, I really like this format better.
Mm-hmm.
I think I have a face for podcasts.
Yep, me too.
That's how I feel, and it's just fun talking.
Yep, I agree. So there's been a lot of stuff that's happened since the last time we met.
Mm-hmm.
The most important of which is someone dropped candy corn on my desk.
Yes, mine too.
Littered my desk with candy corn.
You got the candy corn bomb. I didn't get that, but I did get
2.5 pounds of candy corn.
You say that like it's a bad thing.
2.5 pounds. Now, thankfully, whoever it was, and I'm working with our crack team here to go through the surveillance footage to find out who it was. But I do have to say thank you to whoever it was because they also dropped off Planters peanuts mixed with Reese's Pieces too. So
yeah, big thank you for whoever candy corn bombed.
the candy corn bomb. So you didn't get the 2.5 pound bag?
No, I got Reese's.
A bag of Reese's?
Reese's peanut butter bats. So like Halloween Reese's. It was so good. And then I got the nice mix of candy corn and peanuts, and didn't have the hot tamales in it, but it had it was good. It was really good.
Yeah, well the mix was good. I got the mix too.
Well, and I brought it home and shared it with my family, and it did not stand a chance. They could not get it down fast enough. So thank you, whoever put that together.
The plan is working. More people are liking candy corn. Well, I spoke indirectly to the person who dropped this off, and I told them.
Indirectly to the person. This is an inside job.
And I told them
Obviously.
about Ryan's desire to check the security footage, and I stand by their statement that they had said, yeah, is it in Ryan's job description to review security footage? After all, nothing was stolen. Tell Ryan, unless there was theft or vandalism, security footage is not allowed to be made a Big Brother tool.
Say, do you have a job description? I thought it was just like Ryan Janke, everything. Like
they handed me a blank piece of paper and said, fill it in. And so now, security footage monitor is on the list. Actually, I don't know if anything was taken or not. That's why I have to review the footage.
Maybe that picture of your family at your desk was.
Now you're trying to get me in trouble at home, Sarah, and I don't appreciate this. Now, my candy corn is still on my desk because if I can't come up with anything on the surveillance footage, I've watched the old videos where you take the piece of tape and you try to get fingerprints that way.
So you're going to grab some fingerprints because it's a convicted criminal that you think has dropped off the candy corn.
Well, I don't think it was a convicted criminal at all. I don't believe that. But
I believe they call that a waste of resources.
Now you're trying to get me in trouble in the main office. I'm in trouble at home and here. Maybe we should just move along.
Just eat your candy corn and say thank you.
We need to put a what is those rings on the front of your office door?
I should have
Ring
one.
doorbell.
A ring doorbell. That would be great.
No, really, whoever it was, thank you. That was
Yes.
that was nice. That was a nice gift, a nice surprise coming in to find that. So thank you very much. Did anything else happen over the week that we need to talk
I
about, or
don't think so.
pretty light
Pretty quiet.
week? Okay.
Did you guys trick or treat? Did you do any
I
Halloween?
didn't, but we had a couple kids who showed up, and I haven't showed anybody a picture of this. So my roommates who I live with have an English Mastiff, and we went full white people, and we dressed her up as Hercules from the Sandlot.
Oh, cool.
And it
Nice.
was the best. I have a picture of it.
Nice. Well, you're gonna have to.
I'll insert it in the comments.
You're gonna have to. So we did not. We didn't. My kids. I don't know if I talked about this last week or not, but my kids don't trick or treat anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And
Your kids are older.
what's that?
Your kids are older.
Yeah. Yep. But they do usually like to hand out candy. But this year, we didn't do that either. So you know the drill. If somebody's light is on, you can go and ring the doorbell, and if it's not, you got to pass on to the next place. So we're like, well, we're safe. We were just gonna watch some stuff on TV, and just chill out. Well, all of a sudden, somebody's banging on the door, and I'm going, no etiquette anymore. There's no etiquette around here.
Who was it?
Well, I don't know who it was, but somebody, and it wasn't me. Somebody left the light on outside.
Did you have any candy?
Did you sacrifice your wife's Mountain
Did
Dews
the mountain?
again?
Yeah, I was going to say, did the Mountain Dew come
Oh,
out?
man. And you guys are putting the pressure on me. No. Much to the chagrin of my children, the candy that they got from their grandma had to take a little hit.
Well, the other move is
I didn't have the candy corn by then.
The other move would be to just everyone sit still, turn off all the lights.
Pretend nobody's home.
Crawl down the stairs and reach up and just flip the light off. Would that be noticeable at all? Nope. The kids had to take a hit on their stash. But,
I think we had 2, maybe 3 groups of kids
Mm-hmm.
from our neighborhood that came to the house. But Dylan and I went trick or treat, and he's in his prime.
Yeah.
He's 6 years old. This is what it's all about.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So he had the best kind of, like, in my opinion, pandemic costume because he went as a ninja. It already has a built-in mask.
Oh,
So-
yeah.
And it was so cold that we did it the way you do it in North Dakota. We stayed in the car, and I drove him from house to house,
Yep.
and he would jump out, run up, say trick or treat, get the goodies, and race
Run
back
back
into
in.
the car. And we'd thaw and then drive to the next house.
Yep. I never thought of this until just right now. And this is a good time to maybe test this out. Is there any correlation between the good candy houses and the houses that really go all out for decorating for Christmas? I wonder.
Interesting.
Yeah. We could check that out.
Mm-hmm.
We could tour, because then you just get your map out and say, well, these people had all the good decorations last year, and then you don't get a rock or
Yeah,
Yeah.
They gave out the full candy bars
Yeah.
at
these
at
people.
Halloween.
Now I can tell you that the Mountain Dew apartment had no Christmas decorations that year.
Well, I just learned this year from my roommates Lacey and Bob, who I lived with, because I didn't buy any candy. I used leftover suckers from wedding festivities for my sister. And Lacey told me, she goes, "You can't hand out Dum-Dums. That's such a garbage candy to get." I was like,
That's true. Yep,
"What?
it's one step above candy corn.
There's 18 flavors to choose from."
That's the only reason that it's one step above, is there's different flavors.
I got
I'm going home.
what is it the kids say today? I got, I don't know,
They
static.
say a lot of things we can't repeat here.
I got a hard time was given to me by my high schooler because I picked the candy that was a bag of course, Reese's peanut butter cups, like Hershey's and whatever the other brand is. I got one of both of those. So there was M&Ms, there was Hershey's, there was Snickers. It was all the good
Mars. Is it the
Mars? Yeah,
Mars.
And so everything had chocolate in it, and all that good stuff. Well, she was like, "Dad, why didn't you get something with a bit more of a variety, like Smarties and stuff like that?" And I'm thinking, I got the top of the line good candy here, and you want just a little pixie sticks and stuff like that. That's what she wanted. So kids these days and the choices that they make, I don't know if I agree with them. Yeah,
well, maybe we're partly responsible for that, for handing out the Smarties during service. And
there you go.
She's been without for...
Blame her church. Yeah, she's going into withdrawal. Got the shakes.
She just needs a children's message and a Smartie. Tie her over.
Yep.
She's good to go.
Oh, too good. Too good. So what do you want to talk about today? We have a question. We actually have a question that we didn't get to last time.
Well, do we want to get into the question, or do we want to get into just kind of talking a little bit about the election that has just happened in our neck of the woods, and I guess probably in other neck of the woods?
All over the place, yeah.
Yeah, it's election 2020.
Yeah.
Of all the things to happen in 2020.
Well, and
just the cherry on top.
Yeah, right. 2020 is not done with us yet.
No, not yet. I watched a little bit of the coverage before I came in. We may not know. I mean, we might find out at halftime of the Sunday night football game this week what the results were. It's slow going in some areas.
I think you're right. I don't think we're going to know for a while. I think both sides are going to say they won, and it's going to go to the courts.
Yeah.
Go to the courts.
Yeah, there's already been talk of that. There's actually in Pennsylvania, they went today. Now we're recording this on Thursday the 5th, but they went to regular administrative duties today. They're not even counting today because there's a batch of votes that are being contested.
Yeah.
Because there was, I think it had something to do with ballots that were sent to the same people twice, something like that. So, so they're not even going to resume counting until tomorrow, Friday.
Well, before we get into any of that details, I want to know, what was your voting experience like this year? And for our international listeners, if they don't know, we just had a major election in the United States for the president, for a bunch of senators, and for the House of Representatives, as well as local principalities and so on. So that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
All of our international listeners.
Yep. The millions and millions. Isn't that what The Rock would say?
Millions and millions of that podcast's fans.
I have to say that mine was fantastic. I voted the day before. I voted on Monday, which is only the second time that I voted outside of Tuesday on an election day.
You've always voted day of, huh?
Always voted day of. Prior to this year, the only other time that I did not vote day of was when Tabitha she was working out of town election day, so we went in early because she flew out maybe that morning or the Monday before. But this year, she was working extended hours and didn't go in, and so I went early, and I was in and out in, 10 minutes.
That's great.
Yeah, and it was you walk in, they have you come in one door, exit a completely different door, so nobody's passing each other. And I walked in, and they have it marked where you can stand, and so you're all 6 feet apart from everybody. And they directed me where to go. I went over. I got, they had a little like plexiglass, piece of plexiglass where you would take your driver's license and set it in there so that they could just scan it.
Yes.
So they didn't have to touch your driver's license. Then after they do that, they send you to another, I think they gave me, I did electronic voting, which I've never done that before either. And I was a little bit like, I don't know, but I'll try it. So you did have the choice though. You could do electronic or fill in the oval, old school way. And so she gave me the blank a blank piece of paper and put her signature on it. Or did she or the next guy? I can't remember now. But she gave me that blank piece of paper, and I went and saw the next guy, and the next guy took me to a kiosk, and I took a pen that was in a plastic sleeve, So, and it had a stylus on the end, and he took me over to the little kiosk, and I went through, a tap-aroo, everybody that I wanted, and before
Give
that,
it a little tappy, tap-aroo,
a tap-aroo. So before I did that, though, he took that blank piece of paper, which was rectangle shape, put that in the machine, and then I went through, and then when I was done, I clicked finish or whatever, and it spit it back out to me with everything printed on there. And then I put that in the sleeve so nobody can see who I voted for, and walked over and put it in with all the other traditional votes. And so there is a paper trail, which...
And you do it yourself the entire way.
Yep, you do it yourself the entire way.
Yeah.
Yep. So there was a paper trail, which I was happy about because I was like, well, we'll see. But yeah, and it was great. 10 minutes in and out, boom, boom, done.
Yeah, right. How about you, Sarah?
Mine was same. I probably 10 minutes in and out. The only hiccup that I ran into was that my driver's license is from when I lived in my apartment, and I live in a house now. So, but thankfully I had something with my address. And I do have to highlight the guy who gave me my sticker after I handed in my ballot asked me, he goes, "Do you know who the most important voter is here today?" And I was like, "Who?" Like,
what celebrity do we have in here right now?
And he goes, "You are." And that just that warmed my heart.
That's good.
And that's top-notch election service.
Absolutely. That'll make you vote again,
exactly.
right?
I'm I'm going to go back to see if I can find that guy again.
Yeah, that was my experience too. Originally I was planning on voting here because Atonement's been a polling place in the past, I guess, for quite some time.
Yeah, long time.
So I was thinking, this would be great. Day of voting, I'll just head out of my office and go get in line. And then found out that we weren't going to be a polling place because the polling place is in Fargo, had to be able to cater to early voting as well. And we just weren't able to do that for the amount of time that was needed. So I ended up going online and looking for my local polling place, and there was 6 or 7 of them around town. So I just drove down to the Ramada Inn, and I was in and out in just like you guys, 10 minutes, almost. I think the exact same experience that you had, Ryan, everything that you said. And as I was leaving, I said to this guy, because the last time I voted, this is the first time I voted in North Dakota. The last time I voted, it was in North Carolina, and I stood in line for 2 hours to vote in 2016.
Day of.
Yeah. Glad I'm not in North Carolina now. But once I was done, as I was leaving, the guy gave me the sticker, and I just said to him, I said, this has been the best voting experience I have ever had. It was just so smooth and so helpful. And I said, thank you to him. And he said, you're welcome.
I think one of the processes that, COVID has us rethinking kind of how we do everything, and the ease of more people are going to want to come out and vote, the easier the process is. And that early voting in Fargo, you could show up to whichever one. It didn't matter.
Yep.
If it was in your neighborhood or not. And you were able to vote. And I feel like that's one of those things that we've never had to reconsider because it's how we've always done it, but we haven't. It's been a change for the better.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, it was easy.
So now if just the rest of the country can follow the pattern of North Dakota, holy smokes, it's going to be a while.
One thing that, and I've seen this other places too, but after the 2000 election, Florida really, they really got their process together.
Their game together,
yeah. Because they were done that night, I think, right? Weren't they done on, obviously would have been. Yeah,
I think so.
Would have been Wednesday morning, or very, very early Wednesday morning. They were done.
Yeah. Florida really it's taken them 20 years, but they've really straightened out their game. And they have to. And I think a lot of other places, the nice thing about North Dakota is we don't have the gigantic numbers in really packed metropolises. Fargo-Moorhead is the biggest metro area. Probably the only metro area in North Dakota. But it's not like a Philadelphia or
Right.
an Atlanta or these places where you're talking millions of people.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a blessing that we have here. In other places, doing the things that Florida is doing, that Florida's been preparing to do for 20 years because of the experience in 2000. A lot of these other big places, I don't think, like Pennsylvania is a good example. Pennsylvania, I don't think really had worked out the bugs as to how to do early voting and mail-in voting and keep it all in tracks to get the counts in. Or these other states that are continuing to have to count.
Yeah. Well, it's a new thing for everybody. Plus, it's got to be record numbers of people coming out, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
yeah, that's what they were saying on all the
130 million, I think, so far across the country have been counted.
Wow.
So.
It makes me wonder too, like we have 340 million people in this country?
Something like that.
How many are kids? How many are voting adults?
Not sure.
So I'd just be curious of all of the eligible voters out there, how many
actually voted.
Yeah, how many actually voted? I'd be curious to know that number.
Actually, there's over 140 million who have voted so far.
Out of how many potential 18-year-olds and up?
Yeah, I'd have to do some quick looking here. So, but yeah, I'll get to that in a little bit. But the most trusted news source already called the election.
Oh, who won?
They said that Christ is still sitting on his throne.
Yes,
that's good news.
They called it pretty early.
We certainly don't want to get into a Republican or Democrat fist fight, as it seems like the rest of our country has been in for quite some time. I think as Christians, it's always good to get back to that. That regardless of who's in the White House or the governor's mansion, Jesus is risen. Jesus is Lord. Yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And that's really where our hope lies. From that point, it's voting your conscience, and it's voting who you think is the best person for the job, right? That's the great thing about living in a democracy, and we live in a constitutional republic where we get to have a peaceful revolution every 2 to 4 years. That's a pretty amazing thing. And we've always had a peaceful transition of authority, of power. And I think that's something that, regardless of all of the hubaloo in 2020 and the angst and the fear and just everything that people are feeling, we are a very divided country politically. But in the end, we're all Americans. And for Christians, first and foremost, as a Christian, you're following Jesus.
Well, and I think too, once you think about it in that way, one of the things that I kind of have to laugh at myself, because I'm so good at trusting God about being like, yep, no matter, I don't care who's in the White House, who's ever is where, like, God is in control. But then there are times with, like, me personally where I'm like, well, I don't know. But it's nice to think about, if you're a Christian, it doesn't matter, or even if you're not a Christian, it doesn't matter who's in charge. You can change your own world by your own actions, your own choices that you make, and you can make your own world a better place by your own actions. So
right.
Nobody's stopping you from that.
Yeah, and when you think about, like, elections and political parties and so on, it's very easy. In fact, we're encouraged to do this, to label ourselves. I'm a progressive, or I'm a conservative. I mean, I'm neither a Republican or a Democrat on the back. I'm not a card-carrying member of either party. But if I was to label my political worldview, I'm fairly libertarian, but my libertarianism is limited by my Christianity. So I'm as libertarian as my Christianity allows me to be. And what that means is that I want maximum freedom with the most minimum possible government. And in our country, a democratic republic, there's always this tension when you get down to the brass tacks of what actually matters and what the differences are between the two major parties. It's always a tension between a balance of freedom or liberty and security, right? And the Republicans are thought to be the party that's more about liberty, and the Democrats are thought to be more the party of security. And it's always kind of this tension going back and forth. But those are kind of the positive aspects that I want to focus on rather than the negative aspects. And every election, we're moving somewhere along that balance between being secure and safe and freedom and what that looks like.
Yeah. I just looked, and there's roughly, in 2018, there was about 233 million eligible voters. They expected, coming into this election, 150 million, which they're not going to be far off.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how many votes are left to count in the, 6 states that are sort of left to call, but, we're going to be close to that 150 million.
From what I could see in the numbers, it looked like both candidates have exceeded, broken the record.
Yeah.
For both parties,
Yep.
Joe Biden, I think, has gotten more votes than any other candidate in history, and Donald Trump this year has gotten more votes for a Republican than I think ever in history.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is.
It's crazy too, just for me to think about. An eligible 18-year-old voter was somebody who was born in 2002. It's 2020. And I just can't wrap my head around that.
Just the look in your eyes when that hitches, it's like, ugh.
You are
I'm slowly
exceedingly old.
grasping turning old. You're just seeing the breakdown right now.
That means that am I right about this, that those who voted were born after 9/11?
Yes. Yep. And
wow.
And I don't want to give too much away, but we each have children who will be able to vote in the next presidential election.
I know, you told
How
me that.
How scary
just
is
a
that?
couple days ago.
Man. Okay, I feel better. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, there you go.
No, I think you're right, though, DJ, in that we are, regardless of what happens and whether, I'm using air quotes now, our guy got elected or not, every 2 years, we have a chance to make a change.
Change it.
Do something different.
Yeah, I like this.
And we're blessed.
I don't know who said it, but I think it was one of the founding fathers, or maybe it was Johnny Carson. I have no idea. But I've heard this quote of someone saying something like, in America, we always get it wrong, but then we always make it right.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And Christ still sits on his throne.
And Christ still sits on his throne.
As called by the bee. who are also boasting to be 100% more accurate than pollsters.
Oh, man.
Well, they're 100% accurate. Christ is on his throne. Christ is victorious. That's what it says in the conclusion of the Bible in Revelation. That's the main point. The word for victory in Greek is in Latin the word is Nikos or Nike. It's where we get it's where they get the shoes. Comes from the word victory. And in Roman times, that was kind of like their symbol of, like, we have the Statue of Liberty, which represents the United States, right? Land of liberty, right? In Rome, their symbol was like a statue of the goddess Nikos, who was the goddess of victory, because victory was the primary value of Rome, very warlike. And so in Revelation, the point that's being made over and over again is not that Rome is victorious or political powers are victorious or the evil behind worldly power, sin, death, and the devil are victorious. It's that Jesus is victorious. And that comes up over and over and over again in the book of Revelation. And I just think that's so neat. And it's something to hold on to and remember that, Nike, just do it. Just go vote. but remember that Christ is victorious regardless of the circumstances. Now, we should always resist evil and corruption and abuse of power. But when kind of my rule of thumb when I go to vote is whoever the candidates are, we'll get real. They're politicians. They're fallible people. I don't think you want to elect a holy man per se, but you want to elect good, reasonable governors. People who will set the stage to allow you to have the maximum amount of freedom and security to live out your callings in your life and to worship God, and to succeed as much as possible. I think that's what everybody ultimately wants to have. And I think for Christians, it's important to keep that in mind, that the people that we vote for are going to be fallible humans because we're all sinners. But are they good governors?
Right.
And is their governing giving you the maximum amount of liberty and security that you need to flourish?
Right. Okay.
Hopefully no one would disagree with that. I don't know.
Hopefully not. So, any other thoughts on the election or anything?
I'm glad it's over.
Yeah, I am too. It's a relief.
2020 we still got a month left, so I think Godzilla is going to rise out of the...
At this point, Sasquatch, like Bigfoot, just must be roaming the streets. Like, what's the worst that can happen? They catch me?
Yeah. I was thinking of all the things that have happened in 2020. Man, there's been stuff I forgot about. I forgot about murder hornets, but I guess, I was never affected by...
Washington has them.
Yeah. They thankfully maybe they can't fly above the Rockies. So
it's too high up. Supposedly they found the nest and were able to
get rid of them.
Get rid of those murder hornets in the United States.
Well,
they eat them in Japan.
If I remember right, they used dental floss.
Yes.
They used dental floss to take care of the problem. I can't remember the specifics though. Do you remember?
I don't remember. Yeah. I just remember when the report came out, murder hornets, it was like a big shock to people. And then I found out that in Asia, they eat them. Like they're just, they've gotten used to them being around. And so I don't think they eat them like pluck them out of thin air. But
snack.
Put them on the barbecue a little bit and eat them up.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah. What else? There were wildfires. There was a bunch of hurricanes.
Tiger King.
Was Tiger King 2020?
Yeah. Carol Baskin.
Man, that seems like forever ago that I watched that. Wow. That's right, because we talked about it on one of our first episodes. That's right.
And that just goes to speak about how long we've been in the COVID.
Yeah. Crazy.
It's still going on.
Time is an illusion.
Man, Zoom meetings and all kinds of stuff. So, well, we have a question, and actually this one comes from me, DJ.
Oh, you wrote the question.
I wrote the question.
All right.
This is a question I've had for a while. Ever since you were teaching confirmation, I think last year, must have been last year. And now I'm going to, obviously you phrased it differently, but I'll give you what I remember, and then you just take the ball and run.
Okay.
But I remember you saying that without Jesus, we would not be able to tell the difference between God and Satan.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, and I'll give you a real simple answer.
Okay.
2020. Take Jesus out of the equation. Can you tell a difference between God and Satan in 2020? Anything that I say that usually hits home with someone is not an original thought that I had. That statement comes directly from Martin Luther.
Okay.
Who makes the point that without Jesus, Jesus is where God is revealed. Now, outside of Jesus, God's hidden. God is of your own imagination, and God is outside of your understanding. And he always seems like wrath. And the way that we engage with a hidden God is by trying to placate that God so that he won't have bad stuff happen to us. It's every religion throughout human history except for Christianity. Because every other religion says, follow these rules, do what we tell you to do, and then God, the God who's hidden from us, will be good to you, right? And you could argue that that's kind of the language of Proverbs. But Proverbs speaks like this. If you follow these rules, things will turn out well for you most of the time. But religions will say, follow our rules and things will turn out well for you all of the time, whatever that may be. Buddhism is about learning to endure and remove suffering by freeing yourself from worldly desires and passions. Islam is about submitting to the will of Allah. Well, who is Allah? Allah is God, but God is hidden. Even Judaism falls along that same line where God is, I am the Lord your God, the Lord alone. God is hidden. He's removed. He's in the dark place in the temple. When you go back to temple Judaism 2,000 years ago. But God's hidden. In Christianity, God is revealed through Jesus. And it's not about what we do to please Jesus. It's about what Jesus does for us that puts us in a right relationship with God. So in Jesus, you see God's true self, his loving, kind heart for you. Without Jesus, all bets are off. Right?
Yeah.
Because God's hidden.
Okay.
And so for us, there is no difference in our eyes with Jesus removed between God and the devil. We're just seeking to placate all-powerful forces that inevitably crush us. And the human existence is defined by suffering and the reality that someday you will cease to exist. Right?
Yeah.
Christianity breaks in upon all of that and speaks to, no, God does not want to be wrathful, throwing thunderbolts from the sky at you. God wants to be in a loving relationship with you. That doesn't mean that there isn't going to be suffering, because this world is sinful and broken, and we are sinners, but that God already has a plan in place for you in order to free you from all of that, to set you free. That's the difference between what's called a theology of the cross and a theology of glory. A theology of the cross, as my teacher Gerhard Furdy put it, is really kind of a misnomer, because it's not an idea, it's something you experience. There are theologians of the cross because you experience it, and that's knowing God not in his glory that you can placate in some way, but in his son on the cross who died for you. It's the theology of St. Paul, that I knew before you Christ crucified only. Martin Luther said that a theologian of the cross is an antithesis to the much more common theology of glory in the world, which is just what I shared. Finding ways to glorify myself and placate God so that good stuff comes my way. Martin Luther said that a theologian of glory calls the good bad and the bad good. A theologian of the cross calls a thing what it is. And so what do we confess? We confess that we are sinners, captive to sin, who cannot save ourselves. And yet God, even while we were still sinners, Jesus Christ died for our sake, in our place, on our behalf, and is risen. And because he is risen, we are now in a new and right relationship with God, where God no longer needs to be feared and placated, but God is as close to you as a loving parent is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get it. I get it now that why Jesus to experience God's love
in a concrete way.
In a concrete way.
Otherwise, it's all abstract. I mean, every other religion talks about God being loving, but it's abstract. Jesus is God concretely coming and showing and doing his love for you. And I don't know if any other religion would even make that case. Rather, God is loving, and you need to live up to God's expectations and standards. And maybe that looks like loving your neighbor. In Christianity, we love our neighbor not because we're seeking to placate God, but we love our neighbor because God first loved us. And so why wouldn't we want to love our neighbor? Because that's how God intends things to be. Like, the entire Christian life can be, if you wanted to break it down into what do I have to do? Well, you have to love God and you have to love people. And then, is that it? Is that it? Loving other people means denying yourself, becoming selfless.
Yeah.
Loving God means that you have to stop being your own God and let God be your God. So it's not as easy as it sounds.
Can be tough.
That's why Christ has to do it. That's why Christ does it, so that we are free to be who we are intended to be, God's good creation.
Yeah. I had a thought, and now it's escaping me. But it in terms of gods, I mean, anything can be, including, election coverage.
We will make it. We have such God-shaped holes in ourselves that we will make an idol out of anything. And what is your God? It's your ultimate concern. It's what you rely on.
Yeah.
It's what you're hoping in. It's especially when times gets tough. It's what you turn to.
Yeah.
And God doesn't just have to be some mythical deity. When you think about the myths of the Greeks and the Romans and the Canaanites, they would look at nature, and with pre-scientific minds would look at the sun moving across the sky and say, that must be Apollo driving his chariot. And at nighttime, his sister Athena, I think it's Athena. No, his sister Artemis, his twin sister Artemis, is the moon. And so they would look at natural inclinations. And if you go back, I was reading this book, if you go back in the syntax of these words, Zeus originally, when you go back to Sanskrit, meant like sky. Well, in time, it became a deity that people worshipped and tried to placate. Well, we still do that today with all kinds of idols. It's what the Bible means by idol. You're idolizing this, and you put that in place of God. And we're all tempted to do it. That's why we're sinners.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you a question that I asked the guys last night, because you come up with this curriculum for confirmation, and I'm interested in your answer that I asked these guys. How do you picture God?
How do I picture God?
Yeah.
That's funny. When I think of like God, I can get a little lost in like God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. And so in my head, I picture God as he's seen in The Simpsons. Gigantic sandals, long white robe, and you just see his feet.
Yeah.
You never see his face. But it's different when I think of Jesus. That's what I think of when I think of God. Because that's where God reveals himself. Now, what does Jesus look like? Well, we'll find out when you receive your heavenly reward. But I think of the kind of what I grew up with imagery of Jesus, So
what about you, Sarah?
Well, can I flip the question on you really quick? Did any of your guys say, I like to picture Jesus in a tuxedo t-shirt from the line from Talladega Nights?
No.
Oh.
No. They were all born after 2000.
Not an excuse.
So.
It's too old of a reference for them.
Actually, they had some really neat answers, and I won't name any of them to give specifically their answers, but one of them said, well, the Bible says we were created in his image. So I think he would look like one of us.
Mm-hmm.
So and they had some other good answers to that too, but yeah, it was a great question. That was probably the question that kept the conversation going the longest. I think.
Out of the 25 questions I send out, that one was good.
1 out of 25. It's not bad.
That's not what I meant. Now I'm in trouble in DJ's office. Been getting in trouble this whole episode.
Can we get you in trouble anywhere else?
I'm sure you'll figure it out if there's a way.
I think we can tag the IRS maybe. Just kidding.
Sheesh. Hit the red button. All right, you didn't answer now.
I feel like I'm the same. I know that geographically it's probably not right, but I imagine Jesus in Birkenstock style sandals, long wavy hair, kind of the Fabio-ish. But I feel like Jesus is hard.
Surfer Jesus.
Yeah.
Surfer Jesus.
I don't know. I feel like I never picture what Jesus looks like, more like kind of not like the feeling that he would give me, but like it kind of reminds me of my dad. Like, not very outspoken, but like stoic, comforting presence.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Jim Caviezel.
Well, maybe. Who else has played Jesus over the years?
So, do you remember the movie Flash Gordon? From the great Queen soundtrack is the best part of the movie.
I'm aware of it. I never saw it.
Okay. The guy who's the main bad guy, and now you guys got to go YouTube this, Ming the Merciless, was originally, I think, Jesus in like The Greatest Story Ever Told from the 60s. Those are the only two things that I've seen that actor in. He's a famous actor, and I know he's been in other stuff. But yeah, Ming the Merciless played Jesus in the 60s.
Huh.
There is...
Christian Bale played Jesus.
Really?
I didn't know that. He played Jesus.
He played Moses, too.
He played Jesus in a movie called... what is... Mary... I'm only getting half the name here. I'll have to look it up. But he played Jesus, and so did... See if Ewan McGregor?
Ewan McGregor played Jesus.
Yeah. Will Ferrell in the movie Superstar. I never saw that movie.
Oh, yep.
Okay. Liam Neeson.
Have you seen the movie Ghost?
With Patrick
Swayze?
A long time ago.
So the bad guy in that movie plays my favorite movie Jesus of all time in a movie called Joshua, which was based on a book by a guy named Joseph Gerzon, which is about, I think I'm saying his name wrong, but it's this idea that what if Jesus were to come back between now and the end times, not for the end times, but just to
observe,
just to visit, and he visits a town, and the movie Joshua is based on that book, and that actor who's the bad guy in Ghost does a great job of seeing what Jesus might be like in a contemporary day.
So the name, it was a TV movie that Christian Bale played Jesus in called Mary, Mother of Jesus in 1999. I didn't know that. Willem Dafoe also played Jesus.
Yeah, Last Temptation of Jesus Christ. So we have Batman and we have the Green Goblin.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Ming the Merciless.
And Jeremy Sisto played him.
Yep. Yep.
Wow.
Technically, Morgan Freeman played God.
Played God, but for Christians, God is Jesus. So
true.
Bruce Marciano. I almost thought it said Ralph Macchio, but I don't think Ralph Macchio's ever played Jesus in any capacity. That's interesting. This is a long list of people.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. So
what does Jesus look like for you, Ryan?
The question was, how do you picture God?
How do you picture God?
Well, I told the guys the same along the same lines as
The Simpsons, right?
Well, sort of just not Santa Claus, but old man with a big white beard and flowing robes and glowing. The sort of the image we get when we're a kid. Yeah. Be interested to hear what other people how other people picture God. Put that in the comments section. Like, subscribe, and then write in the comments section how you picture God.
How you picture God.
Yeah. So, all righty. Well, I think we did enough damage for today. So, well, thank you all for joining us. DJ, would you mind praying us out?
I'd love to. Dear God, we thank you for this time together, and we thank you for the gift of life and friends. We ask, Lord, that you would help our country, help our people as we continue in this season of COVID, as we go through this election transition. Let us remember that we are all made in your image, and that means that we are called to care for one another because of the individual value that you have placed on each and every person. Bless us, keep us until we meet again. All this we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. All right. Thanks for joining us. Remember, find us online, atonement.live, atonementfargo.org, and the YouTube by searching Atonement Fargo. And that's it for today. For Pastor DJ Lura, Sarah DeYoung, I'm Ryan Janke, and join us next week for another riveting episode of That Podcast.